This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. So as you guys know, I've been doing a rewatch of the Cleveland Browns 2023 season. Right now, or I just recently got done with the Week 10 rewatch versus the Baltimore Ravens, which means now I have seen all of the Deshaun Watson starts of 2023. So what do I think about Deshaun Watson after rewatching all of those starts? Do I think higher? Do I think lower of him? Do I think about the same of Deshaun Watson? I would say this: rewatching the 2023 season, I got some new perspective on some things, but it was mainly positive about Deshaun Watson. I walked away thinking that his output for the 2023 season is very underrated, especially by people who read box scores in bad faith. And I think the amount of coverage and the loudness of that coverage from people who aren't really invested in the Cleveland Browns or the Cleveland Browns' success, or really even in football, the loudness of the coverage from those people has really skewed the perception on what Deshaun Watson did this year, because the fact that people are acting like this was a bad run of a season for him, it's just so off of what I saw. I've said this during the season. I'll say it again after rewatching it. He was above average in almost all of these starts except for the Pittsburgh one, and then like the Indianapolis one where he clearly wasn't healthy to play. Like, he was clearly above average. In some of these games, he was significantly above average, right? Tennessee, I would say he was significantly above average in the entirety of the Baltimore game. I would say he was significantly above average if you look at the whole game. It's fascinating to me the amount of narratives that have come out of here that just aren't connected to the football. And again, this comes down to the fact that a lot of the loudest voices about the Browns are national voices that aren't really invested in the Browns, which means that they're going to miss stuff because they're not really talking about the football. Like the whole narrative that Deshaun Watson, like the Browns won games in spite of Deshaun Watson, is so hilariously off. Like it's one of those narratives that has a verifiable proof in the opposite direction. Like, if you think that the Browns won in spite of Deshaun Watson, I don't know how you come to that conclusion if you watch the games. I just honestly don't. It's false. It's just false. It's a false conclusion. You can look at his numbers. There's plenty of evidence, that definitely verifiable evidence, that Deshaun Watson was a big part in winning those games. I mean, like, if you really want to get down to it, I have stats I've pulled up before. You can check them on Twitter. Also, I mean, just in Cincinnati, who scored the fourth quarter touchdown that put the game away? Deshaun Watson. In Tennessee, who scored the fourth quarter touchdown that put the game away? Deshaun Watson. Who scored the fourth quarter touchdown in Arizona that put the game away? Deshaun Watson. Who scored the fourth quarter touchdown that put the Browns in position to tie the game with the pick six? And then who led the game-winning drive in Baltimore? Deshaun Watson. Who made the two biggest plays on that game-winning drive? Deshaun Watson, 2nd and 19. Deshaun Watson scrambled to get in field goal range. If you are trying to tell me that they won in spite of him, I can't trust you talking about football, or at least about the Browns, because it's clear to me you did not watch, right? And like the plays that were made, the Cincinnati touchdown was probably the most basic fourth quarter touchdown he had to put a game away. But the Tennessee touchdown, the play that he made there was incredible. It was an incredible throw. The same thing with the Arizona touchdown. He had an incredible 2-minute scoring drive in this Baltimore game in the fourth quarter to bring this game back close. And he had a game-winning drive in this game. No other quarterback could do that in 4 wins and people claim that he got carried or that they wanted spite of him. It's just such a horrible, false narrative that really needs to be pushed back on because it's just not true. And look, if you want to criticize Deshaun Watson for the stuff that he's been accused of off the field, okay, fine, go at it. But don't lie about the football, dog. Like, if I'm here to talk about the football, like, I'm not about to sit here and lie about the football. And if you can't move past that enough to talk about the football here, then I just got nothing for you. The football was pretty good for Deshaun Watson for the 2023 season. It was not bad. I feel like sometimes people have to mute their feelings about how Deshaun Watson played because so many other people are willing to jump out the woodworks and tell you he played awful. So you don't want to sound ridiculous and you say, well, you know, he was okay, but he was good. He was good. Just say it. Just say it. He was good in 2023. I don't care. Don't care what somebody who pulls up box stats are going to say to you. He was good in 2023. It's okay to admit that, and it's okay to talk about that. He was good in 2023. That being said, there are some things about Deshaun Watson that just are true about Deshaun Watson. And I think we ought to get used to it. Because every time Deshaun Watson does something that we don't like or has a bad play, we have this tendency to blame it on Russ. And some of this is Russ, but a lot of this is just stuff that Deshaun Watson's been doing, right? Throughout his whole career, he's had an issue with this. One of those things is that he consistently starts slow in these first quarters. Now, it's not all the time that it happens, but it does happen with Deshaun Watson. Like, you look at his career splits, his first quarter to fourth quarter splits, he seems to always kind of start slow or have this tendency to start slow. So I don't want to blame that on Russ. Like, I know people are going to blame it on Russ if he starts slow in a game and then he's rusty or whatever it is. I don't think it's Russ. I think he just starts slow. I think he's just not as accurate in the first quarter. I think also part of his play style dictates that he's a little bit slower in the first quarter because he's really trying to gauge what the defense is trying to do to him. So he's not taking as many risks and he's not going to be as effective in the first quarter. Now in the second, third quarter and fourth quarter, especially closing out halves like the second half and the fourth quarter, he was really good for the Cleveland Browns this season. He was excellent in the fourth quarter for this football team this season, played his best football of the year, usually in the fourth quarter, which is, you would rather have that than him be great in the first quarter and bad in the fourth quarter. And he pretty much played a style that closed games really well for this team. And I think he was a really good closer for this football team. So that's one thing that's true. Also, Deshaun's just going to eat a lot of sacks. Like, I know that we've talked about this since the Browns traded for him. He's just going to take sacks. Like, that's just going to be what it is with Deshaun Watson. Another thing that I discovered doing this rewatch and talking to people who watched Deshaun play in Houston is something interesting. See, we in Cleveland don't really have the context to discuss Deshaun Watson properly at times because a lot of us aren't that familiar with what happened with him in Houston. And this happens with players that you trade for. You know about what they did for your team. You don't really know about what happened with the other team. But it does matter for Deshaun Watson because we be talking about doing things that they did in Houston. And here's the secret about what happened in Houston with Deshaun Watson when I talked to people who covered the Houston Texans while Deshaun Watson was there at quarterback, right? Shout out to my guy, Cody. I have him on the show whenever the Houston Texans come to town. We always talk ball. He's great at what he does. And I talked to him about some of this stuff with Deshaun Watson. And he told me the one thing that never happened in Houston was that they never built around Deshaun Watson, which was like interesting to me because if you hear people in Cleveland talk about what they did in Houston, you would have swore they built the Deshaun Watson offense. Like they built the template for how to be successful for Deshaun Watson. It's not the case. Actually, when Deshaun Watson was in Houston, that was one of the biggest issues people had with Bill O'Brien is that he never built the offense around Deshaun Watson. And the same criticism can be applied to Tim Kelly, who did not build that offense around Deshaun Watson. So that means that the Deshaun Watson offense is not being ported over from Houston, which makes sense on why the Browns weren't interested in bringing anybody from those Houston days over. The Deshaun Watson offense is being created because it's never existed before. So this season will be the first season where it appears as if the team will be seriously building an offense around Deshaun Watson in his career. We'll see if it works, but it was interesting to find out that there was no Watson system in Houston because, again, we just assumed that it was because he had success in Houston. He played well. We assumed that they built some kind of system specific for Deshaun Watson. That was never the case in Houston. It's interesting. It's interesting. It was actually a point of friction. It's interesting, right? I think the whole Deshaun Watson thing is just an extreme test of patience. And I get it. We don't have patience anymore. We have phones and internet, which means people don't have patience anymore. We don't want to wait. And this is the Browns. People feel like they've been waiting for decades for this team to get to where they need to. But patience, that's what they needed, right? Deshaun Watson seems to be good at football still. It's just a question of, can he stay healthy? Now, to that question of, can he stay healthy and will he take less hits? I think I might have overreacted to the amount of hits he was taking when I rewatch it, because it doesn't seem like he's taking that many egregious hits. Like he took like 2 or 3, and you can argue maybe 2 or 3 is too many. But also, this is football. You're gonna take hits in football. Like, he's got to be able to withstand them on some level. Like, you can't just be easily hurt, and he's not somebody who has a history of being easily hurt. So I think the injury concerns, it's just a little bit overblown right now, given that his injury history is not something that's crazy. So overall, I think that Deshaun Watson had a good 2023. It was above average to pretty damn good at times. And I think you can call the Baltimore game what it is. It's great. I understand why people tend to temper their emotions or temper their verbiage about how he played. And it has nothing to do with football. It has everything to do about how people will react to you if you say Deshaun Watson played good football, right? Like, people assume all kind of other shit about Deshaun Watson that they think you think if you say he played good football, right? When that's not the case. If you think he played good football, people should just say he played good football. But because all of this other stuff exists with Deshaun Watson, you can't just say he played good football, right? So people have to qualify or be like, well, he was okay, just to make themselves sound reasonable. This is something I talked about in my media video that I did earlier last week, where I'm talking about how people try to appear objective, how people try to appear fair, how people try to appear unbiased, kind of makes them lie, right? And this is one of those things. People want to appear unbiased about Deshaun Watson, so they downplay what he did because it makes them seem less biased, or it makes them seem more objective. But is it true though? It's not. He played good. People acting like he didn't. It's stupid. He played good. He had one bad game this season. One bad game. Again, think what you want about Deshaun Watson, the person off the field. I'm just talking about the ball, dog. Like, that's all I care about is the football in this context. So yeah, I think a lot of the panic surrounding about Deshaun Watson is kind of just created. I don't think anybody in the building thinks that. I don't think Deshaun Watson thinks any of this stuff is like, this is just, he played good last year. All that happened was he got injured. If he comes back and he's healthy, he will play good. I'm pretty confident in that. So that's my takeaway after rewatching all the Watson starts. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace. Also, it's going to be different. This little background is going to be different the next time you watch a video from my channel. Well, at least if you watch a new video from my channel. So make sure you stay subscribed and notified so you can see the new thing. It's not going to be nothing crazy, by the way. It's just going to be a little change. But y'all have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.